Story 1. I've never liked the ocean. There's something very unsettling about it. You never know what can be lurking in the ocean's darkest depths. A few friends and I took a trip out to Australia for spring break. I had a big death in the family that year. It made me realize how short life is, and it inspired me to get over my fears. Thus, I decided to try scuba diving for the first time. Seeing that the majority of my friends wanted to spend the days drinking at Australia's famous pubs, only me and my friend Ian ended up going scuba diving. As broke college students, we didn't have the money to hire a reputable scuba diving instruction company, so we went onto a scuba diving forum and found the cheapest guy we could find. We messaged a guy by the name of Jack. Oddly enough, he responded within 5 minutes and sent us directions to his dock. After driving through various neighborhoods, we arrived at an old shack on the water. Strangely, the dock was located in what I presumed to be Jack's backyard. Jack greeted us at his front door. He was wearing an old sleeveless shirt. He had long hair and looked and smelled like he hadn't showered in weeks. He led us to the boat. Jack's boat was an old beat-up fishing boat. It had to have been less than 12 feet long and more than 20 years old. But like I said, we were on a strict budget, and he did have all of the required scuba gear, so Ian and I boarded the boat and Jack began driving us out to sea. After around a half hour, I was getting freaked out. Where was this guy taking us? I didn't need to scuba dive in the middle of the ocean. This was just a beginner's level dive. "Jack, where are we going?" I yelled over the sound of the engine. Jack completely ignored me. He just kept driving us further and further out to sea. After another few minutes, Ian stood up and walked towards Jack. "Sir, where are we going?" Ian yelled as he placed his hand on Jack's shoulder to get his attention. Without looking at us, Jack shut off the motor. "You American kids ever see the Great Barrier Reef?" Jack asked. No sir," Ian replied. "These are some of the most shark-infested waters in the world. You see, a shark took my daughter a few years back. She was swimming, and a great white took her away from me. But it's okay. She's been visiting me in my dreams. She told me if I give the sharks 2 more souls, that she will be able to come back home," Jack said, as he grabbed a large bucket from underneath his seat. Jack slowly lifted the bucket over the side of the boat and poured its contents into the ocean. It was dark red. Jack was using blood to attract the sharks in the area. Ian and I stood there in complete shock. We were trapped in the middle of shark-infested waters with a madman. "Get in now, boys," Jack said, as he pulled a handgun out from a compartment on the boat. Ian and I remained frozen. We didn't know what to do. We didn't want this guy to shoot us, but we sure as hell weren't getting into these shark-infested waters. I glanced over the side of the boat. I saw 3 large great whites near the surface. They were circling us now. Jack slowly started approaching us. He waved his gun from side to side and had a large grin on his face. Suddenly, the boat jolted to the side. A large great white must have pushed into the small boat. We all went flying. Ian and I fell into the seats beside us. Jack fell directly into the water. Jack frantically tried to get back onto the boat, but it was too late. One of the great whites grabbed him by the legs. It quickly pulled him under the water, and Jack was never to be seen again. Ian and I managed to get back to shore and call the police. It turned out that Jack was a real scuba instructor. His daughter was killed by a shark when he was teaching her how to dive. Can't say I don't feel bad for the guy. Despite their reputation, sharks aren't evil animals. They are simply living in their habitat. And besides that, one day, they might just save your life. Story 2. I've never believed in myths. I always thought that people who believed in them were as dumb as they were gullible. This all happened on a cool fall night. My friend Sam and I were doing some fishing on a secluded dock. We brought a cooler packed with beer, so we were both pretty drunk. The entire night we were catching a ton of fish. It was incredible. After drinking beers for a few hours, both Sam and I had to use the bathroom. There was a small sandy area a few yards away from the dock. We left our stuff and jogged over there to do our business. When we got back to the dock, there was a woman swimming in the water. She was beautiful and had long flowing brown hair. It was a bit late at night for a swim, but it was totally normal to see swimmers in this area. It happened all the time. "How are you guys doing?" the woman asked us as she effortlessly kept herself afloat. "We're good. A little dark out for a swim though, isn't it?" I replied. "That's true. Now that you mention it, I should get going. Will you please help me up onto the dock?" the woman asked as she flashed us a beautiful smile. Sam, being the ladies' man that he was, knelt down and held out his hand. The woman quickly grabbed it, but instead of trying to get onto the dock, she began softly pulling Sam towards the water. "No, really, I can't get wet. I have my phone in my pocket." The woman didn't answer. She latched onto Sam's arm with both of her hands now. She was somehow keeping herself afloat with just her lower body. I grabbed onto Sam to make sure he didn't fall in. The woman kept pulling harder and harder. At first this was funny, but now it was getting crazy. Suddenly, I noticed a long green object coming out from beneath her. A long green tail splashed next to her as she suddenly pulled Sam clear into the water. Sam screamed and fell beside her. The woman held him tighter now. He screamed and flailed in the water. The previously beautiful woman started changing. Her previously beautiful skin began to develop scales of some sort. Her teeth became sharper. Her eyes turned a weird green color. Her hair started disappearing. The woman let out a high-pitched laugh and dove underwater with Sam in her arms. Her large tail hit the water hard, causing a gigantic splash to soak the entire dock. I never saw Sam after that. I phoned the police, but they didn't find anything. I told them about the woman, but they didn't believe a word of what I said. I never go near the ocean anymore. Who knows what that woman was, or if there are more of her. Stay safe in the ocean this summer. Mermaids are not the loving creatures that they are depicted to be. They are darn right evil. Story 3. It was a hot summer afternoon. Me and my two friends, Mark and Jason, were all off from school for the summer. Seeing that everything was closed due to the pandemic, we decided to take Mark's boat out on the water. We packed up our cooler, sunscreen, and all of our fishing supplies and headed out on the water. The water was oddly empty that day. Despite it being a beautiful day, there was not another boater in sight. We continued out to our usual fishing spot and began fishing. For the first time in a while, the fish just weren't biting. For over 2 hours, we sat there in the hot summer sun and didn't even get a bite. To cool off, we all decided to jump into the water for a swim. One by one, we all jumped into the ocean. The water was oddly warm that day, but it was still a refreshing break from the summer heat. Being immature kids, we decided to play a game. We wanted to see who could hold his breath the longest. Seeing that I have bad asthma, I didn't last long. After a few seconds, I swam to the surface and watched to see who would win. A few moments later, Mark came up. We waited to see how long Jason could stay submerged. "Wow, he can hold his breath forever," Mark mumbled as he caught his breath. A full minute passed. I was now getting worried. I held my breath and went underwater again. I nearly fainted. Jason was 20 feet down. He was not moving, and some large animal was feasting on his abdomen. Suddenly, I felt a pulling on my left leg. I turned around and saw a giant bull shark. It must have smelled Jason's blood. It had my foot in its mouth and was pulling me deeper underwater. As I panicked, the shark pulled harder. I didn't know what to do, and I was starting to get lightheaded. All of a sudden, I felt a fast movement next to me. It was Mark. He dove underwater and was holding a large harpoon. He stabbed the shark directly in the nose. The shark quickly let go of my foot, and we swam to the surface. Mark helped me get onto the boat, and we phoned the Coast Guard. Jason was dead. He was devoured by a bull shark. We must have ran into a group of them. Divers only discovered scattered parts of his body. I was lucky. Paramedics were able to save my life and my entire leg. I have a nasty scar across my left foot, but besides that, I was unscathed. I never swim in the open ocean anymore. I'm sorry, Jason. We will never forget you.